All right, this is my video going through my process of how I analyze the question when somebody asks you which running shoe is right for me. As always, remember you can find the written version of each of these videos on my website, peaksrunning.co. And these are all listed under my course, the Peaks Formula, which you can enroll in, and find all my other lessons under that course there. All right. So first part, the first pair of running shoes. So for my patient that has just started, or athlete that has decided that they just now want to start running, congrats. But since we're surrounded by roads in the Western world, and you've probably been wearing shoes your whole life, that means you need a good pair of running shoes to help you get started. Maybe you were referred by a medical provider or a friend at a gym to your local running store. You walk into the store, and chances are you are immediately overwhelmed by all the choices, and suddenly you're wondering, where do I even begin? The reality is there are many choices and many suitable options. First things first, the fact that you made it to a running store rather than buying something online means that you've correctly made the first big decision. The reality is that there is no one correct shoe for any individual, but there are likely many. How do you know what that correct shoe is? Well, the truth is that picking the right pair of running shoe is highly subjective, and the comfort, the experience of the shoe is one that is the most important, and if not the most important factor to consider when choosing a shoe. Yes, there are many things to consider based on running terrain, foot type, flexibility, etc. But if the shoe is not comfortable to run in, then it's likely not the shoe for you, no matter what any medical professional tells you. Because ensuring that the shoe is comfortable and is so important regardless of style, I recommend against buying shoes online unless you're buying a model that you're already familiar with. When buying shoes online, you're generally making a judgment based on appearance or the reviews of others. But considering how different one pair of shoe can be from another, it's not uncommon to find a certain shoe that one runner loves, but is not the same shoe that you love. So try on multiple shoes for yourself at your local running shoe store and make the judgment call for yourself. Many people ask, how much support do I need? That's one of the things that are harped on a lot. Support, support, support. There are many myths about shoes that go around, largely promulgated by my specialty, podiatry. The biggest one is probably about supportive shoes. There are many intrinsic and extrinsic features within a shoe that can make it feel more supportive when walking or running. Those details, though, I'd say going beyond the scope of this lesson. What people are generally referring to, though, when they're talking about supportive shoes is the amount of give or flexibility in the midsole when stretched side to side or when trying to bend the shoe in half from front to back. Many will say that if you can bend a shoe at all in that way, then that is bad. You need to get a new pair of shoes that is more firm. I'd say as a general statement, that is wrong for multiple reasons. One, pronation of the foot, what traditional supportive or quote unquote motion control shoes attempt to reduce, is a normal movement that the foot goes through to attempt to absorb forces when walking or running. Trying to prevent pronation as end goal in a foot without pain prevents this compensatory mechanism that the body naturally wants to use. Most children and young adults can tolerate and likely benefit from shoes with lower stack heights, which refers to shoes with less cushion under the foot, as well as less stiffness in their shoe. Less supportive shoes will allow for more recruitment of smaller muscles in the feet and force the soft tissue to adapt and strengthen, especially if they are challenged under certain conditions, such as running on grass, single-track trails, or playing a sport with lateral movements. It's for this reason that cultures where kids grow up walking or running around without shoes tend to fare better than Western cultures, where children and adults primarily get stuck wearing shoes, and they tend to not tolerate minimalist style shoes as well as they get older. Additionally, because shoes with lower stack heights and less intrinsic support challenge the muscles and ligaments in the feet better than the contrary, children will receive more proprioceptive feedback, which just refers to you can think of awareness of the body in relation to space. And they'll get more of this feedback from the ground, which will then enhance their balance and likely make them more robust and less injury prone down the road as they grow into their bodies. If you believe that motion control shoes truly are reducing pronation in the foot, then there are certain injuries that would likely be worsened by wearing them, and you can see more about this in my lesson called Injury Considerations when choosing shoes. It's possible that shoes with too much support can cause injuries simply because the person wearing them has adapted to walking or running for many years and miles with neutral or less supportive shoes, and their body does not respond well to this sudden restriction in motion. This brings us back to our golden rule, which is that comfort is the primary factor to consider when choosing the shoe that is best for you. And I'll leave us off with this last question, which is something that people might ask, which is, when do I know I need a new pair of shoes? I would say that the age-old consensus has always been that a running shoe needs to be replaced after about 300 to 500 miles. This broad range has become less and less of a sure thing with the continued advancement of lighter and lighter midsole materials because of the major shoe companies choosing to value performance in a lot of their models over durability. This is especially true with the advent of many of the variations of quote-unquote super shoes that are being sold at a high-ticket price despite being advertised as only being durable enough for a single marathon performance in some cases. With some of the cornerstone models that the major shoe brands will have on their 30-plus edition, think the ASICS Gel Cumulus, Brooks Glycerin, Nike Pegasus, the 300 to 500 mile range will likely be more likely to ring true. Beyond that, how else can you know? There's again a kind of subjectivity to deciding when it's time to move on to a new pair of shoes, I'd say. And here are some things to consider. The outsole on the bottom of your shoe is going to wear out the most of the area where you simply apply the most pressure. If you're a heel striker, it will likely be on the lateral rear foot of your foot. And if you are a midfoot striker, then you will probably feel it more under the balls of your feet. Wherever it is that you apply the most pressure, if you're consistently running, you should feel a noticeable difference about just between how it feels on day one with the shoe and on the day you decide to move on from it. For me, I don't like feeling as though it's sore under the balls of my feet and as though there's less material between the shoe and the ground with each foot strike. And that's when I start to feel this sensation and when I decide that it's time to ditch that pair of shoes for a new one. Some runners will start to develop a new injury out of the blue when training in a pair of shoes that they've been wearing for a while. This can trigger them to realizing that they might be due for some new shoes. Then once they switch, miraculously, the injury slowly starts to subside. So if you've been training in a pair of shoes for an extended period of time and start to develop an overuse injury, then you might consider that your notice to consider swapping out your shoes. If you start developing foot injury for the first time or experience a previous injury worsening despite wearing new shoes, this may indicate some changes progressing in your feet that do require shoes with certain specifications catered to your injury or foot type. If that is the case, I will again refer you to my lesson, Injury Considerations when Choosing Shoes, which will be a video that I will be uploading next after this lesson. All right, thank you.